A deer stood over a lion cub and refused to walk away. Not because she was frozen with fear. Not because she was confused. She made a choice. And that one choice turned into something nobody in the history of wildlife research had ever documented before. This happened in the Masai Mara, Kenya, in the summer of 2019. The grass was tall. The dry season had just ended, and the animals were spreading out across the open land looking for food and water. It was during a routine morning patrol that a wildlife tracker named Jomo spotted something that made him stop his jeep and just stare. A female bushbuck, which is a medium-sized antelope with soft brown fur and big dark eyes, was standing completely still in a small clearing. That alone was not strange. What was strange was what was sitting at her feet. A lion cub, tiny, maybe 4 or 5 days old at most, still wobbly, still blind in one eye, crying in that small broken way that newborn cubs do when they are hungry and lost. Jomo did not move. He cut the engine and watched. The bushbuck lowered her head slowly and touched her nose to the cub's face. The cub pushed back. She did not run. She did not kick. She just stood there and let him press against her leg for warmth. That image, a natural prey animal and a natural predator cub sharing the same breath, was so unusual that Jomo called it in immediately. By the time the senior researcher Dr. Amara Osei arrived at the location, the bushbuck had not moved an inch. She was still there, still standing guard. Nobody could explain it then. And honestly, even now, years later, the explanation still feels too big for words. The cub's mother was found the next morning about 200 meters away. She had been killed, most likely by a territorial male lion who saw her as a threat. The cub had been alone in that clearing for at least a full day before the bushbuck found him. He was dehydrated, cold, and in the kind of condition where most wild cubs simply do not survive. The bushbuck, who the research team later named Dara, had recently given birth to her own fawn. She had milk. She had instincts firing in every direction. And for reasons that no scientist has been able to fully explain, those instincts pointed her toward that crying cub instead of away from him. The cub was named Aslan. And what Dara did next is what nobody expected. She did not just stay near him. She let him nurse. The first few weeks were the most fragile. Aslan needed warmth, milk, and constant contact. Dara provided all three. She would lie down in the grass and let him curl against her belly. She groomed him the same way she groomed her own fawn, a small male of the team called Benny. She nudged him when he rolled too far. She stood over him when the wind picked up at night. Jomo watched them every single morning. He kept a notebook and filled pages with things that had no scientific explanation yet. On day 9, Aslan took his first real steps without falling. Dara was right beside him, matching his pace, slowing herself down to his speed. Benny trotted alongside like it was completely normal to have a lion cub as a brother. For a short while, it almost looked like it was. But nature does not stay quiet for long. By week 5, Aslan had doubled in size. His paws were getting wide. His jaw was getting strong. When he played with Benny, what started as gentle bumping was turning into something harder and rougher. Benny was fast and would dart away. But there were moments where Aslan would pin him down with a paw that was already too heavy for a game. Dara always stepped in. She would place herself between them, push Aslan back firmly with her nose, and hold her ground until he settled. She was not aggressive. She was not panicked. She was just clear. This is the line. You do not cross it. What surprised Dr. Osei the most was that Aslan actually listened. Most predator cubs raised in the wild follow instinct almost entirely by this stage. But Aslan had grown up reading Dara's signals. He understood her body language the way a cub understands its mother's. When she tensed, he stopped. When she relaxed, he relaxed. He had essentially learned emotional cues from a prey animal, which created a behavioral pattern nobody had seen before in a wild-born lion. Word got out. Researchers from 3 different universities requested access to observe. A wildlife photographer named Selin flew in from Istanbul and spent 2 weeks in the field. Her photos spread across the internet within days. Comments poured in from everywhere, some full of wonder, many full of doubt, and a few full of anger. People wrote that the team was interfering with nature, that they should separate them before Aslan grew large enough to kill, that keeping them together was cruel to Dara and Benny. Dr. Osei read every message. She understood the concern. She had thought about it herself every single day since that first morning Jomo called it in. But every time she raised her binoculars and found them in the grass, Dara grazing calmly, Aslan sleeping pressed against her side, she could not bring herself to call it wrong. Not yet. Aslan was 4 months old when it happened the first time. A small herd of gazelle had wandered into the open stretch of land near where Dara and her family grazed. Aslan went still in a way he never had before. His whole body dropped low. His eyes locked. His tail moved slowly from side to side. He was not playing. He was not exploring. Every muscle in him was doing something ancient and automatic that no one had taught him. He was hunting. Jomo held his breath. Aslan crawled forward through the grass, 1 paw at a time, completely silent. He got within 30 meters of the nearest gazelle before Dara noticed what was happening. She walked directly into his path and stopped. She did not make a sound. She just stood there, between him and the herd, and looked at him. Aslan paused. His focus broke. He looked at her, then at the gazelle, then back at her. He sat down. The gazelle moved on. The moment passed, and Dara went back to grazing like nothing had happened. Dr. Osei wrote 3 full pages in her report that evening. What Dara had done was not teachable. There was no training manual for it. She had interrupted a hardwired predatory sequence in a growing lion cub using nothing but her presence and her stillness. And it had worked. But everyone on the team knew it would not work forever. Over the next few weeks, Aslan's instincts kept pushing through. He stalked birds. He chased insects with the same low crawl he had used on the gazelle. His body was changing fast now, losing the round softness of a cub and replacing it with lean, early muscle. His paws left real marks in the mud. His voice, which had only been small chirps and squeaks, was starting to carry a low rough sound at the bottom of it. He was becoming a lion, and Dara somehow seemed to understand it better than anyone watching from the jeep did. She did not fight it. She did not try to stop it. Instead, she began doing something that shifted the direction of the whole story. She started leading him toward things only a lion would need. There was a zebra carcass about half a kilometer east of their usual grazing area. Hyenas had taken most of it, but left enough behind. Dara found it first. Instead of steering away from it the way prey animals naturally do, she stopped near it and waited. Aslan approached cautiously, nose working overtime. He had never smelled anything like it. He circled it twice, looked back at Dara, then lowered his head and ate. Dara stood nearby and grazed on a patch of grass, as if this was completely routine. She did this 3 more times over the following 2 weeks. Every time she came across a carcass left behind by other predators, she would slow down near it and wait for Aslan to catch up. She never pushed him toward it. She just made sure he knew it was there. It was the quietest kind of teaching. No drama, no force, just presence and patience. Dr. Osei described in her notes as the most deliberate behavior she had witnessed in 22 years of field research. Dara was not just raising Aslan. She was preparing him for a life she could not follow him into. Benny was 8 months old by this point, quick and alert and increasingly nervous around his adopted brother. The size difference between them had become impossible to ignore. When Aslan stretched out fully in the sun, he was already longer than Dara herself. His jaw could crack bone. His roar, which had started as that low, rough sound weeks earlier, had opened up into something real and deep that rolled across the grass and made distant birds lift off trees. Other animals felt it too. The dynamic around Dara's small family was shifting. Predators that would have tested her before now gave the group a wider path. Aslan's presence was its own kind of protection, but with that came a new danger nobody had planned for. A coalition of 3 male lions had been moving through the region for weeks. They were young, aggressive, and establishing territory the brutal way young males always do. The research team had been tracking them on a separate log. They were getting closer, and they had no idea what kind of lion they were about to meet. They came on a Tuesday morning, just after sunrise. 3 young male lions moving fast through the tall grass, heads low, following Aslan's scent. Jomo spotted them first and radioed Dr. Osei immediately. By the time she arrived, the 3 males had already found the clearing where Dara, Benny, and Aslan were resting. What happened next took less than 2 minutes, but nobody who was there has forgotten a single second of it. The 3 males spread out and moved toward Aslan the way lions do when they mean to finish something. Aslan stood up slowly. He was not running. He was not backing away. But before he could do anything, Dara stepped forward. She placed herself directly between Aslan and the 3 males. A bushbuck alone, standing in front of 3 lions, who had not eaten since yesterday. She stamped the ground. She held her position. The males hesitated, confused by something they had never encountered before and had no instinct to read. That 1 second of confusion was enough. Aslan stepped around Dara and released a roar that Dr. Osei later said she felt in her chest from 40 meters away. It was full and heavy and left no question about what he was. The 3 males stopped completely. There was a long moment where nothing moved. Then they turned and walked away. Aslan watched them go. Then he turned and pressed his head against Dara's neck. The research team made the decision 3 weeks later. Aslan needed to move to a protected reserve 200 kilometers north, where a small pride of females had lost their dominant male. It was the right call and everyone knew it, including, it seemed, Dara. On the morning of the transfer, she stood at the edge of the clearing and watched the team load Aslan into the crate. She did not move toward him. She did not run. She just watched, calm and still, the same way she had stood over him the very first day Jomo found them together. Aslan is 6 years old now. He leads a pride of 11. The reserve reports that his pride shows unusually low aggression toward other species and shares territory more peacefully than any lion group they have studied. Dara passed away 2 years ago at a very old age for a bushbuck. On the morning her herd was spotted moving through the area near Aslan's territory, rangers recorded him standing at the boundary of his land, completely still, facing their direction for a long time before walking away. Some things do not need an explanation. They just need to be witnessed.